I'm Jim Csek. You're watching Now Media. With me, Cathay Gibson from the Seniors for Climate, the Kelowna chapter, one of the coordinators there. And also, you've partnered with Draw the Line. Thank you for joining me today.
Good to be here.
So you want to bring attention to, obviously, climate, and you say that the time to act is now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you're trying to accomplish?
Okay, we're a group of grandmothers and grandfathers who came together because we saw the direction that the country was going towards a war economy and gearing up for more defense spending and austerity. And we realized we've been through 30 years of neoliberalism, and a lot of people have suffered as a result of that 30 years. And people now are standing up and coming together for their grandchildren, for the next generation, to make sure that we have a healthy climate. And we have some other justices that have been left behind, for instance, like economic justice and Indigenous justice, racial and migrant justice, anti war, migrant justice, and anti war and pro peace, and climate justice. Those are some of the points that we brought forward through Draw the Line because a number of people have come together to signify this environment that we're living in now and how we want to change the way things are.
So yeah, I did read some of the Draw the Line stuff, and so yeah, I guess Draw the Line as proponent for open borders. Is that what I want to understand from that?
Open borders?
Well, it says that they don't like closed borders. That's what I read in there. What is the position then for migrants?
I think we want to maintain our immigration status with those around us that come to our country as newcomers because they provide not only a base from which they can help us with our economy, but they also enrich us culturally and economically. So I think providing that open door, as we have as Canadians, has helped us in that regard, build employment and build a culturally diverse country.
Are you in favor of like kind of like controlled immigration though? Because over the past 2 years with the Liberals, we've seen skyrocketing immigration, loss of access to healthcare for many Canadians, housing costs that are skyrocketing, inflation that's skyrocketed, and and then crime is skyrocketing because our system is not doesn't seem to be capable of handling that influx of people in that short period of time.
I'm not sure we can blame immigrants for that. I think that's what we're here for, is to talk about how corporate profit has overseen and has propagandized a lot of these movements. For instance, our economic justice. We want to see people gain from the environment and the economy, and
Right.
that includes immigration. That includes people from all walks of life.
Did you read, did
Indigenous
you read
justice, racial and migrant justice, and
did you read
anti-war and anti-peace or
did you read
peace movements.
did you
So I think we want to be more inclusive than we want to be exclusive.
Did you read the UN report that said Canada, with corporate greed, like you just outlined, is basically modern day slavery by bringing in this many immigrants that many corporations are relying on too much cheap labor?
Yes, and I think that goes under the title of economic justice, that we're not servicing the people that are employed in a way that's just. We're not paying them properly, we're not housing them properly, and that goes for our population as well. So that's why our movements have come together because we see a broad spectrum of injustice that has been left behind by 30 years of neoliberalism and corporate profit.
I'll leave that one there. On the climate, you're reacting to Mark Carney's approval of the LNG there in northwestern BC in that, and then so you're saying the fossil fuels need to be ended. So what does that say to the economy? I mean, Canada's in debt. We're probably going to table a $100 billion deficit. Some of our biggest riches are in our fossil fuels and in our resources. So what is the solution there? Do you think for Canadians to have access to healthcare and all that stuff? That's part of how it's paid for, according to this government. So what would be the solution?
Well, Seth Klein has written a book called A Good War. And instead of a war economy, we could, in fact, provide for a just transition for green, sustainable jobs using the Youth Climate Corps, for instance, which would provide a green basis for sustaining our economy as well as building on clean environmental policy that Clean BC did substantiate quite well in 2018. We want to stand by those targets and we want to build on it rather than digressing to other projects which provide more fossil fuel profit. And we feel that it's a dying industry. We'd rather see a national electrical grid, for instance, utilizing such resources as Site C, which is a dynamic um, investment in our province and could fuel this national electrical grid across Canada.
Well, all of that takes capital, and a lot of the capital in Canada is leaving. A lot of capital is fleeing Canada because of the regulations and stuff that you're just talking about. The last 10 years of Liberal policy has caused a lot of capital to leave because of all the regulation, and you're asking for more regulation. So where do we get this capital then to invest in that? I'm a big believer in green. I have solar on my roof. I drive an electric car, but also a little bit of a realist in recognizing that. How do we get there? When we're talking about everybody wants more money, like you're saying, you don't want any cuts to public service, and so how do we maintain that when their bill to the Canadian taxpayers in the billions and billions of dollars?
Well, there's no doubt that we have our challenges. But I don't think going backward is the solution to austerity, hurting people more, not housing, not providing for housing and public health care and electric cars, as you say, and solar. Solar's the cheapest it's ever been. It
Mm-hmm.
can provide a lot of more energy than fossil fuel companies can, and at least regard for our health and well-being, our environment. And if you look at the statistics and what's going on out there and what CBC just put forward this morning, we're in trouble. We haven't kept to our climate targets. And we have to build that into our economy if we're going to survive, let alone be economically feasible.
Um, Alberta and Saskatchewan are kind of like the economic engines of Canada, and we rely on them a lot for, like a lot of the tax revenues that they generate. And it's also goes into healthcare and many other provinces. So getting rid of fossil fuels, that's the engine for them. So like, how do we replace that engine right now so that people can eat? Right now, 89% of Canadians, 89%, just let that sink in, 89% of Canadians are $200 away from meeting their monthly obligations. So going to it, it sounds good for a lot of people that are okay, especially people that are later in their lives that are in a better place. But for young people that can't put food on the table, what's the answer to them? What are they supposed to do?
Okay, well, I just want to say that um, we've been trying to build an economic policy, but we've left behind environmental policies. And that would help young people because a YCC Corps would build green union jobs that pay well as sustainable in the long term, not fossil fuel companies, which are going to go out of business soon. And also because of the fact that we have an environmental crisis on our hands and we're all living through that. That's affordability. When I lose my home to a fire, when I'm left as a refugee, when I can't survive to pay my bills because my job is now over, because my business burnt down, I think we have to look farther and look a little bit, have a vision of what we can sustain and what we can't. And the fossil fuel companies are not sustainable right now. And I think Alberta's been looking very strongly at alternative energies. Some of those have been shut out. I think we need to open the door of
Yeah,
energies and
yeah.
provide for that possibility.
Alberta has looked at many things, and they also look at nuclear energy, and BC does not look at nuclear energy. We have a ban on nuclear energy. Is that something that your organization supports, the small modular reactors?
I can't really comment on that. I think our organization has been strongly for a national electrical grid and alternative energies such as solar and
Where's
wind.
so most of
And
this
also, I,
would come from solar and wind? So this grid would be powered with solar and wind, or?
no, the national electrical grid would be powered with Site C plus another. You'd have to make bridges of electrical grids across Canada, and I've been talking with some other the leaders in our communities, and they say it's possible, but it would be through phases. But it's a lot
Um,
better than waiting for fossil fuel companies to build another pipeline or to further fracking, which we know the health and, and the benefits with that, and the land problems that we've been hearing about
so I've done
because
interviews.
of
Yeah,
the.
I, I've done interviews with Fortis, and you realize we still buy power from Washington State and from Alberta. Like Site C doesn't provide enough even for British Columbians.
Well, we're not able to do that anymore, so we've got to stand on our own 2 feet. But I think some of these projects are like 5 years away. A
Mm.
national electrical grid isn't, and solar energy isn't. And we can move on this now. We can move on the YCC core. We can move on a electric transit for people, for public. We can move on public housing, social housing. The NDP is famous for that.
How many people in your organization in Kelowna here? How many of in the seniors for climate? How many would you say are very active members?
Well, it's strange. We started out small, but we keep gaining in number. And now we're on the board for Draw the Line. We have people coming from small communities to join us in this protest. We have now a national across Canada cities taking part and having their own rallies in their own particular ways, what's pertinent to their communities, and it's international. So I think people over profit is really having a time now. I think we've come into a what you might say a critical juncture in our history. Do we go back to fossil fuels and to more austerity and a war economy, or do we think for people and think for Indigenous justice and for migrant justice and for people who were left behind after 30 years of neoliberalism? We don't want war. We want peace.
So you talk about a war economy. I know that there's a couple of active wars going on in the world, and those are one in Ukraine, and then the one in Israel in Palestine there, Gaza. Do you think Canada's at war somewhere too? You say end the war economy here.
No, I say we're building a war economy
Mm.
with the amount of defense spending that's been put into Carney's budget. That's very close to the United States. And I don't think we want to go there. I think we want to protect Canada, but we also want to help people, ordinary people, survive this crisis, this climate emergency crisis, this inequity of economic pay crisis, this Indigenous inequity, and migrant inequity.
Is there any young people in your group as well? Because a lot of young people are looking for opportunity, and they would say that like all these things that you're talking about, go against them seeing any future or opportunity. I mean, there's so many British Columbians leaving. Young people are leaving British Columbia for better opportunity in Alberta. What do you say to them?
I'd like to fight those statistics if it
Sure. I mean, you're welcome
wouldn't
to. I
mind.
mean, they're put
I
out by
think
the
the
government.
YCC.
What's that?
Okay, but I think the YCC is the Youth Climate Corps is creating a huge challenge
No.
to some of the ideas that people could want to work at McDonald's. I think people do want to take care of the economy. They want to build their future. You asked me that. Young people are really nervous about how we're progressing. They don't see a future. They're having a feeling of hopelessness. The YCC provides turns hopelessness into hopeful
Mm,
and puts people to work at a decent wage. I don't think Alberta can compete with them. I think BC's ahead there.
okay. Is there anything you want to add? Is there a message you have for people that you want to share?
I guess I'd say I welcome us coming together for economic justice, Indigenous justice, racial and migrant justice, anti-war and pro-peace, and climate justice. And I guess for us, seeing this many people come together for one project across Canada and internationally says something to our governments, but more to our corporations that have left us behind with profit, We want people over profit now.
Where's
And
the
we
next
ask for these
event?
justices to come
There's
later.
an event coming up. Where is this event, and where will it take place?
September 20th, Saturday, in front of Kelowna City Hall at 1 o'clock.
Okay, so if people want to,
And
is
we're going
there
to
a
have a sit-in.
okay, you're gonna have a sit-in. If people want to go to a website to get
Well,
more information, where do they go?
they could join us at the Kelowna Okanagan Library at 11 a.m. to make a sign if they don't have one,
Okay,
and then just come on board to Kelowna City Hall,
and that's on September 20th, um, in front of Kelowna City Hall. What time was that again?
1 p.m.
1 p.m. There you go. I do thank you for your time, Cathay Gibson, and I wish you well.
Thank you. I appreciate talking with you today, Ian.
All right.
Have a
Cheers.
great day.
You too, as well. Bye.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.